So my name is C.L. Brown. I'm a poet, an author. I'm originally from Jamaica. I was born and raised in Jamaica until I was 12 years old. Then I relocated to Miami. Pretty large family. I have two young daughters. One is 2.5, one is 4 months. Luna and Sunday. And yeah, that's pretty much about me. I got started writing poetry. I think around like 2007. Just kind of like accidentally writing stuff on social media, and I received a lot of encouragement to publish a book because people thought I had something that was worth saying, something that was important to say. So I finally published my first book in 2015, and I've since published 3, and my 4th will be published sometime this year, I think by summer this year.
Wow.
The 4th will be published. It's pretty much finished right now, but I'm going to be doing an audio version for this book. So I'm going to wait until the audio is finished before I release the print version. But pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be a phenomenal book. And I can't wait to get it out to you guys.
Awesome, CL. And, I remember when I first spoke to you, and we talked about your books and what have you, and now you're on your 4th book, and how does that feel? Because it's like you are really, you're really into it, and you also are a book journey coach for other people. So what does that feel like to be on your 4th book and to be helping other people, with their books?
Yeah, I think more than just the fact that it's the 4th book. I think what it is for me and why it is really a phenomenal journey, because this is the thing that I'm doing not because I'm expected to do it. Like I tell people sometimes, I've gone to university. I have 2 degrees. I have a master's degree, but I felt like that was something that my parents expected, society expects. Versus when you find something that you're passionate about, something that you're gifted to contribute to the world, and when you contribute that gift to the world and you see the difference it makes, not just in your life but in the lives of people who engage you on that journey, it's really a phenomenal thing. To really impact people's lives in a very positive manner. And I'm also, as you mentioned, I'm a mentor of sorts. I've mentored a few people that have published. Some are on their 2nd book now. I've written forwards for a few authors already, and more are coming out. I think it's one of those things where, we basically, you reproduce based on who you are. I think if you're an artist, if you're a poet, a writer, a singer, you will find yourself in a position to mentor. Some people, they I guess sort of the ego kicks in, and some people are like, well, this is my thing, and I don't want you to share this in this glory, But for me, I think it's important that if you have accomplished something, if you've walked a certain path, that there's a responsibility for you to guide others into that path, So. Go ahead.
Absolutely, I totally agree, and I think it's very noble, and it is that thing of giving back. It's like paying forward. It's like you've gone on the journey, and obviously people have loved what you do, and they want to do something similar, and they trust that you can take them there. So it's a lovely thing for you to be able to kind of return that to them, and be able to kind of give them that gift of for them to be able to write their own book. And what would you say is the because there might be people listening and thinking, that's 4 books, and he's mentoring people, and they may feel, I've always wanted to write a book, but for whatever reason there's a fear or just that feeling of I don't know if I can do it. What would you say is the first step for somebody? And when you started writing, what was the first thing? What was the thing that motivated you? What got you, writing again and again?
Well, so the first book, what motivated me was that and this is just in my situation, right? I'm in software. I do software for a living, and I was in the websites building. I reached a point where I was kind of fed up with doing that. I got tired of doing that, and so it was kind of like, because back then I had my 9 to 5 job, and then I would do my stuff at night. So when I decided to stop doing that, it was like, what am I going to do now? I can't just come watch TV because I'm not like a TV person. And it just so happens that during that time, people were already, for like 2 or 3 years, people were saying to me, write a book, write a book, write a book. So I had all this time on my hands, and I was like, okay, I'll do a book. So that was my motivation. I wasn't really thinking it was going to be successful. I wasn't thinking that I'm a great poet. I wasn't thinking any of that. But for someone who doesn't necessarily have that same path as I did, that says to themselves they want to write a book, the first step I would say is to write the book, right? Because that's really the hardest part, is to actually write the book. And don't get caught up in, is this a bestseller? Is this a great book? It may not be a bestseller. It may not be a great book, right? You may sell 10 copies, but you want to write a book. And you wanting to write a book has nothing to do with how many sales you made, right? So the first step is to write a book. And if it's not a great book, and if you feel inclined to write a second book, well, guess what? You're going to get better at it, because that's how you grow, because like with my first book, I sometimes go back into that book and I see stuff that I wrote, and I'm like, what? I could have worded that this way. I could have made it sound better here. But the thing is, at one point I was thinking to edit those things and put out a second edition, but then I was like, how do you see your growth then? So you still have the first book where, okay, this book may be a great book, maybe not be a great book, and then you write your book 4 or 5 or 6 or 10, and you look back and you can see how you grew in that process. Because I've met people that they want to put out a book and they're concerned it's not the best. You can't let that deter you. So if you want to write a book, write the manuscript. Write your manuscript, and from there, the publishing process is actually way more simpler than people actually think. And in fact, you could actually publish a book for free, for absolutely free. It'll only cost you the time that it took for you to write a book, So if you want to write a book, just write a book. And then you can worry about how you're going to publish it.
That is awesome advice. And I totally agree with you. It is that thing of anything that you're doing. It's about just getting started. And, as you go, you're learning, you're growing. And, it is important to just take that first step. If it's something that's in your heart to do, if it's been there for a while and you've just been, kind of like ignoring it, but it's still there, it's still coming at you. I totally agree. Just go for it and don't go for, is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? Just get it on paper and, you will know what you need to do from there onwards. C.L., when did you learn that you had the gift of, because tonight we're going to hear some of your wonderful poems as well. When did you find that you had the gift to write and the gift to write poetry? Because poetry is a different animal, isn't it? It's kind of got its own style, and for a while we didn't hear very much about poems, but what I found online, there is so much love and so many people, really cherishing and looking to enjoying poetry, and poems has come back in a, because obviously we hear songs and it's got lyrics which kind of is like poetry, but poetry is still a standalone. It's got a unique thing to it, a je ne sais quoi, if you will. What would you say? And when did you find that you had the gift to write this unique style of writing?
For me, and again, when I started, I wasn't trying to write poetry, and that's because I wasn't someone who read poetry outside of school assignments when I was in high school and maybe college. I didn't attend poetry events. I didn't read poetry books. So when I was writing, I was just writing stuff that was in my head. And at the time, I referred to it as a freestyle writing. And people would say to me, "Oh, you're a poet. You know, this is a poem." And I would tell them, "No, this is a freestyle writing. I'm not a poet. I don't know anything about poetry." So I was writing poems for a while before I started to acknowledge and say, "This is poetry." And before I started to say, "I am a poet." And that took me about 3 years into the journey. And again, it's because I felt like I had no qualifications to call myself a poet, you know. But then you have to look at it too to say, who's qualified to say you are a poet? You know, where does poetry come from? Does poetry come because someone sat you down and taught you how to write poetry, or is poetry inborn inside of you? And if it's inborn inside of you, then who gave you that? Where does that gift come from? You know, and so it took me about 3 years for me to acknowledge. But I knew there was something there when the first poem that I wrote, quote unquote poem, because I didn't call it poetry. And this one girl that read it this was on MySpace, and she messaged me and she said her sister read it and her sister was crying when she read it. And I was totally surprised, right? And then when I went to Facebook afterwards, I reposted that on Facebook, and this girl, I went to college with her, and she messaged me and she said, "You know, whoever that girl is, you need to go and find her and tell her how much you love her." And that's when I started to realize, like, okay, well, people like what I'm writing. And then I had friends that were commenting and asking me who wrote it, because no one, including myself, that was like the first thing I wrote, you know. So no one knew that I wrote. I didn't know that I knew how to write. So it was a complete shock to everybody, including myself. So that was around 2007 when I started.
Wow, you know, it's just, when just hearing your story on writing poetry, and it just shows that, you know, when you just line up, and you know the universe will pour into you. And I feel that that's what I think's happened, is that you were aligned, and you know you had all this inside you, and you know it was the right time, and you took that. You know, like you said, you were just there doing what, you know, just it came out, and somebody else, this woman, you know, confirmed, like you said, you know, there is nowhere to go to say I'm a poet, I'm not a poet, but that woman confirmed, you know, this is your thing to do, and you've been doing it ever since. Yeah, and
love it,
love it. And what do you think we should do? Because because you just told that story. Have you got a story? Have you got a story? Have you got a poem for us?
I do, and so actually, what I'm going to do on this show is I'm going to share some pieces from my new book. So these are pieces that no one's heard.
Oh, wonderful! Can you tell us the title of the new book?
The title of that book is the Eyes That Swallowed the Midday Sun.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I love that title. I actually have the cover design, but I just got it yesterday, so I need to design it and start promoting. But
oh my God.
I love it. So I'm going to read the first piece. I'm going to read here is called "Where the Heavens Kisses the Earth." Okay. I am the place where the heavens kisses the earth, where the disheartened sun lies in your eyes, the way lifetime lovers lie in the arms of eventual goodbyes. I am the place where the clouds ascend like mountains, their spires adorned a reddish fiery glow, the consequential radiance of my heart's burning for you. I am the lament of your absence. I am the long night that has come, so day shall no longer be. Time and space here no longer honor the vow we took, but the way your weary eyes look away from me, they have never been more perfect. Our light has succumbed to the darkness, and I am again beguiled of the sadness I shed in the nights I clothed my heart inside of you. This is the day I have hidden my face from. For though we conceived in the arms of infinite possibility, laboring the afflictions of love, I must now bury the stillbirth of hope that I once carried. Eventually, the dream I'll never wake from will become poems I'll never write, wishes my tongue shall never speak, the weeping of lullabies in the nights my body holds tightly to the agony of losing you. But until then, I am the place where the heavens kisses the earth, where the disheartened sun lies in the brown of your eyes, the way lifetime lovers lie in the arms of eventual goodbyes. The end.
Wow, that was so beautiful, so descriptive, and it sort of transports you somewhere as you're reading it, and the words, they take on a life of their own. It's almost like you can visualize what you're saying. Wow, thank you for that. And I love the way you recite it. I don't know if that's the word to use, but the way you kind of share it. And you mentioned earlier on that you're about to do some audio. Is that
Yes.
Is that with this new book, or is that with some of the other books that you've already got out there published?
That's going to be for this new book.
Oh wow! Okay.
I was supposed to do an audio before. I started an audio for the fourth book, and then my baby was born, and then
yes, a little Sunday.
it kind of got side. Yeah, it got pushed to the side. But so what I did for this book, I decided I won't release the paper version until I finish the audio. So then I'm motivated to get it done, because I've been having people were asking me for audiobooks since my first book.
Yes, I can imagine. Yes.
Yeah, so this is going to be on audio, and the plan is to also have it on streaming, so like on Spotify and things of that nature.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely feel that is just going to, take things to a whole new level with people being able to kind of hear the poetry in motion.
Yes.
Yeah. What I want to ask is, what's the anatomy of a poem for you? When you sit down to write, how does it come through you? Do you hear something? Do you feel something? Do you just pick up the pen and it comes through, or does something have to happen? What's the catalyst? What's the ritual that goes into creating a poem?
Yeah, for me, it most often it starts by me feeling something. And then there are times when I could be in a conversation with someone, and the person will say something, or I will say something, and it triggers a poem. Or I could listen to music or watching a movie, and it triggers. But it's always the case that something triggers it, and it's almost like a gate is open, or like a window is open, and you have a set period of time to take in everything. If you imagine that you're in person's cell, the guard comes and he opens the window, and you have, say, 10 minutes to take in everything that you have, that you can get in that 10 minutes. And once the window closes, that's it, right? From that point, you have to imagine what you would have seen through the window. So for me, once that window is open, I try to stop whatever I'm doing to get in as much as I can. If I'm really busy, I just get in like an outline, and then when I have time, I can go back and kind of like fill it in and color it in, if you will. But I never sit. I never sit. Today.
Yeah, we
and then try to think of something to write. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's just like what happened. You faded out a little bit, but yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so what I was saying, the last thing I was saying was that I never sit and try to write something. I never sit and write. Because I like the authenticity when something kind of comes to you, because I feel like the poem, and sometimes when the poem comes to me, it's you're writing it, go back, where did this come from? Uh, and two, like sometimes, to me, poems are messages. And it could be a message to someone else that you don't even know. And when you try to dictate how the poem is supposed to look and feel and be read, you can sort of push yourself into it, and you push the recipient of the message out of the picture. So I try to, because I've written poems that to me it means one thing, and then someone comes and they say, "Oh my God, it means this, this, and this," and it's completely different than what I was. Right? And and for that reason, I tend not to explain my poems, because if you read it and you got something from it, right? It was something that you needed to get from it, and then I come to you and I say, "Oh no, it doesn't mean that. It means this." Right? I've destroyed the message that you were supposed to get. So yeah. So for me, it always comes. There's always a feeling, and I think that's where you get that soul connection, because it's an inner thing. It's almost tangible. So that's my process.
I love that, because it just shows that, as you say, you know that this you go through, you see through that window, and you take in as much as you possibly can, and you really want to keep the integrity of the message. You don't want to
yes.
You don't want to try to interpret it. You just take it as you find it, put it down, and invariably, people will come back to you and say, "Oh my God, I really needed to hear that," and that's beautiful. And I love the analogy how you've described that. Earlier on you mentioned. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and the thing with when you do it that way, because really I don't write to simply entertain. I certainly don't write to make money. I do what I do because I believe what I have is a gift, and I try to give it to the world. I try to be pure. And what you find is, some months ago, someone messaged me on Instagram, a picture of my book in her mother's bathroom, right? And her mother had bought a book from 2016, and she said her mother still opens it from time to time and read from it. So that's when you see, okay, you because you can read the same poem today and then tomorrow you read it and it's something completely different.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And if it's like you can open the book, like you were saying earlier on about messages, and someone can open the message, just don't try to read it from a specific place, but just open the book and see where it falls.
Right.
And again, you could find that there's something there that you really just needed to hear. But that's wonderful, isn't it? That this lady is still very much in love with the book you wrote, and her daughters, kind of confirm that to you. Wow. Yeah,
that's phenomenal. Because
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because then you know that you are making an impact in people's lives.
Absolutely.
Then you know that someone didn't just buy a book just to support you and then toss the book in the back of the bookshelf.
Yes.
Yes. And for me, that's the rewarding thing.
Yeah, because you're coming from the soul. You're coming from a place of wanting to make a difference and being
absolutely
being that I can't think of the word I wanted to say, but oh God, I can't think of the word, but you're being that person, or that conduit. That's the word. The conduit
right.
With which spirit can come through and deliver the message, and then you can be the person who shares it. And yeah, I love that. I think that's wonderful. What I was going to ask you was, earlier on you mentioned about 2020, and have you written anything pertaining to anything reflecting about 2020, and also what has that been like for you with your writing, and how was that has that impacted you in a good way, a bad way? How would you say?
So to answer your first question, I didn't write anything specifically about the situations in 2020. it, but probably because there was a lot of emotions. There was, with the George Floyd situation, there was a lot of anger on my part, with everything that was happening. And I didn't want to write from a place of anger, because that comes out into, and I think when you're trying to write to create it's almost like your writing becomes a table where you can sit and have a conversation about something. Imagine sitting at a table and everybody's yelling because everybody's angry. You can't have communication, right? So when you write from a place of anger and people read that in your writing, then they become defensive. And once you're defensive, you're no longer listening to what I'm trying to say to you. So, but I think also to 2020, because this book, I realized I started this book in late 2018. I didn't realize it was that long. Then I started just like writing little pieces here and there. And so in 2020, I took that time I did some additional writing and I did some editing. So from that perspective, it was a fruitful year, because I did finish the book last year. And I initially was thinking about releasing it like last year, November, but with everything that was going on, I kind of felt like spiritually the soil wasn't right for sowing. Yes. And so I decided to come out of 2020, leave that stuff behind and then come out in 2021 and publish it. So that's why I kind of delayed it as well.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a rough time,
I think, with 2020, there's so many aspects to it, in that, yes, it was rough and so many horrible things happened, like you said, Mr. George Floyd and what happened to him. People watching all over the world and just being shocked. But at the same time, people locally are saying, well, this has been happening for a long time. It's just that everybody was sitting at home on that occasion because of, the lockdowns and what have you. And I think, with everyone sitting, being at home, the whole world was able to see what has been going on. And
right.
Yeah. But also, I think with 2020, it opened a lot of people to things they hadn't thought of before, and, maybe more spiritual things, and maybe thinking more about others. So in that respect, I think there was a kind of coming together for a lot of people. But of course, a lot of people lost loved ones. And I'm sure we all know of people who's passed due to, COVID and different things. But yeah, so I hear you. You just wanted to kind of let that pass and then come into 2021 with the new book. And it sounds amazing from the first poem that you've written. Have you got another one for us, C.L., from the new book?
I do. So this one is a little bit short, but this one is called All That I Am Is With You. This wind holds my attention so possessively, and yet it passes with a distinct kindness over my skin, moving my being as though I am rooted in nothing, but still, all that I am is with you. This ground is no stranger to the burdens that weigh me down, and yet it is never without strength when I need it most. But still, all that I am is with you. Everything this world has to offer, life, death, and all the irrelevancies which lie in between, they are nothing compared to a moment stolen from the noise, dancing with the silence of you. So give to me all that you are, while this night keeps the inevitable outside that door. Make love to me on this tear-soaked floor, because all that I am is with you. The end.
Beautiful. Just again, Thank you. Grabs you, and then you come to the end and you're like, wow, I went somewhere, and now I'm back, and it's like, wow, And I love that, the descriptive words, and it's just so emotive, and it just opens up a different part of who we are on a soul journey. And I know a lot of your poems have been love poems, but also as well very much nature and other things too. And
Yes.
Again, where do you find spirit or the universe or what have you? Where do you feel you're most guided in terms of the type of what you're writing, whether it's love, nature, or what's going on around you?
Well, as you've noted, like I pay a lot of attention to nature around me, to flowers, to I've even declared myself a tree hugger because I think everything is conscious. I have my plants outside, and my neighbor, like, he was saying, "Oh, your plants they're so green," and I'm like, "Listen, I talk to them, I touch them, I walk, like I literally show them love because they respond to that stuff, and." When you think, even like yesterday, I was thinking about this coincidentally, that when you watch like martial arts, like Asian martial arts, and you find that a lot of their movements is art. It's very artistic. It's very spiritual, right? But a lot of it, their observances of nature, of animals in nature, and how animals behave. Because I think animals and trees and everything in nature, because they don't have, I guess, that free will, they kind of operate in the same wavelength as they were meant to operate, right? Whereas we can step in and out of it. And so I tend to look to that a lot, and that guides me in my writing. It might be also because I grew up on the countryside in Jamaica, so I'm used to being around cows and birds and grass, and so I'm not like a big city person. I've never like lived in a city type setting, so you find that a lot of my work is spiritually grounded, spiritually rooted, and you're gonna find some element of nature, like almost all the way, always.
Yeah, I love that, and I definitely, that comes through in your work, because you just are able to describe the right to the detail, the smallest detail, and as you were saying about trees and animals, they're sentient beings, and they do guide us. They do, when you are in nature, it's like if you go in there and you've got your day, on your mind. As soon as you walk into nature, it just evaporates. It's almost like, it's all gone. It just disappears, and you're in another realm. And I do feel being in, like in a forest or a park, or, where there's all the trees and the plants and just nature enjoying itself, just teaching us really that, all this stuff that we take on in the world, all this baggage is, taking us away from who we really are. And as you said, it's taken us into that realm, that wavelength, where our true self, our true authentic self can just, open up. And that's the thing, C.L. Do you go into nature when you're writing? Would you be like out in your garden, or out in the park, or out in the forest, or is that something that you do at any time when you're writing, or when you feel you need that inspiration?
Yes, absolutely. When you do have the time, because I have two young ones home now. So when there has been times when I've gone to a park and spent like 3 or 4 hours in the park, and now when I'm home and I'm writing, I go on my patio where I have my plants around me, and that's like my little getaway spot. But yeah, absolutely. The thing is, when you go in, like, if you think about being in a city environment, in an urban environment, right? And maybe you're in a downtown setting and you hear cars and you hear construction workers and you hear conversations and music, and it's just noise, right? Sometimes you're walking in the city, you put your earphones on because you want to take yourself away from that noise and put on some soothing music or whatever the case is. But then when you go into nature and you hear insects and animals and trees creaking and the wind ruffling leaves, but you don't put some headphones on because that noise is actually very soothing. You know, so I when I get into that place, you know, and I try not to just go there and sit and write. I try to go there and just kind of sit, absorb everything that's happening, and it literally, you know, it kind of clears your mind out, and then it sort of gives you clarity because it takes away your anxiety, the stuff you're worrying about, the bills, and it takes all that stuff away from your mind. So then your mind is free enough for the poetry, for the music, for the art to come in and present itself to you, you know.
Yeah, this fast-paced 21st century that we're in, you know, we do need outlets. We do need, you know, a way to kind of because, you know, we're hearing so much about mental health. I don't know if that's something that you're hearing about in, you know, where
all the time.
You are. And
all the time.
You know, and I just think when you know, I'm not going to say that there isn't such a thing as, you know, mental health issues and they need to be dealt with in that certain way. But would you say that a lot of what we're calling mental health today, do you think a lot of it has to do with just stress and people just being in that, you know, in that kind of space where they're just on this frequency, which is go, 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 go. And it's, you know, it's that they haven't had a chance to let go of stuff for a long time. And how important would you say is it, you know, for things like poetry, nature, you know, just taking time out, just taking some, you know, self-care, self-love, and just taking time out for you, because, you know, we are in this brisk and people, you know, are finding that they're staying in that 24/7, and you know, I would say that would give anybody a kind of frenzy and a feeling of, oh my God, I can't cope.
Yeah, you know, in actuality, my girlfriend, she's a therapist, right? And she can tell you how many times I've told her, and this is not to dismiss anything anyone is going through mentally, but she will tell you that so many times I've told her that this mental thing, that's this trending mental thing, that's the mental illness thing that's going on. I said to her many times, if a child comes to you and the child says, I can't do this math program, problem, you can say to the child, yes, you can, it's too hard. Now the child thinks there's something wrong with the child, right? And what I find is that because you have all of these people in society that are seen as role models and celebrities, and they're all saying, you have a mental health problem. So now everybody's saying, so the least thing you go through, right? Because a lot of things that we go through, it incites feelings inside of us, and feelings are not who we are. Feelings are things that we experience, right? Yes. So now you're going through a situation where, you know, temporarily you're going through something. It may not even be that serious, but maybe it is. But you're going through something and you have these feelings, and someone is saying to you, check your mental health. So now you start telling yourself, I have a mental health problem, right? And whatever you tell yourself that you have, you're going to have it, whether it's there or not, you know? And like you said, and I've said this to my girlfriend, like, listen, if you're going through a situation, sometimes there are things you can do to come out of that situation. You know, I can recall times when I was at work, I was depressed. You know, there was stuff going on and I felt depressed, and I would come home and I would go and I would do my gardening. And by the time I was finished my gardening, I was good.
Yes.
You know, I didn't need to go sit with a therapist or get put on medication or so. Like, sometimes you just gotta, like you said, there's so much going on. You know, if you think about it, like, we are spirit beings that operate in frequencies, right? Mm-hmm. And you have all of these, not just frequencies as far as people's emotional states, right? You're around someone who's angry, that stuff, it's going to be bombarding you. You know, imagine being around someone who's happy. Even if you're sad, you're going to feel happy, right?
I know some people just infectious, isn't it? Especially if they got that laugh, you just can't help it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and then when you think about even stuff like, the Wi-Fi, the cell phone, like all of these signals are messing with your signal, your frequency. And if you don't believe, if you're a person who doesn't believe in frequencies, just ask yourself, how is it that birds fly in the patterns that they fly?
There you go.
Right? Yeah. No one's sitting there and say, go that direction. It's frequencies, right? So we're constantly being bombarded, right? And then you have people that you look up to that are saying, you have a mental problem. Go see a therapist, right? And the therapist is not going to tell you, no, you're fine, because the therapist wants your money. He's like, if you go to the mechanic is not going to tell you, no, your car is fine. They're going to be like, oh, there's something wrong. Give me your car. They take your money. So I think, personally, yes, there are people who do have issues mentally, or they do have, situations where they need to look after that. Some of it too is what we're eating.
Yes.
If you have mental health problem, maybe you need to change your diet. I can tell, like me, I don't really eat meat. I eat fish, seafood, but I came off meat and I felt great just doing that. So there are things that we can do to better our situations, to better our physical, emotional, spiritual well-being. But we have to be careful, I think, because there are people out there who are incentivized to tell you that you have mental health. And so if I come to you and I'm a pharmacist and I say to you, hey, you have depression issues, are you going to buy my pills just because I told you that? So
exactly.
And then you're in a bad mood, you play some music and it goes away. You if you're a painter, you paint, or immerse yourself in art. Immerse yourself in nature. Get away from, sometimes even your friends or your family, get away from that stuff. And don't feel like because you're my family, because you're my mom, because you're my dad, because you're my brother or sister, that I have to be around you because we're a family. No, get away from that stuff. And like I said, you'll find that your life will improve. I promise you that.
Everything you said there, I totally agree with. And I feel, when you're talking about frequencies, it's like, the frequency that this world is operating on at the moment is a crazy frequency. And people,
yes.
If you, like you said, going into the city, going with all that hustle and bustle, that is not natural, every single day. I remember when I was young and I did that kind of thing going, I remember it just never did it for me. It never made me feel, I just felt, it was always, and I had to find different things, like you say, you have to find different things to kind of get yourself back into that balance, back into that frequency. And I think that, right. As you're saying, somebody who's, angry all the time, or who's, it's basically they've just stayed in a frequency and they haven't done anything to change it. And like you said about the birds, they're going in unison, they're moving in unison, and just watching them, it makes you feel calm and peaceful and takes you back to that, that peace. But as you were saying, it's like this mental health that is being put out to us all the time now. It's because the frequency has changed, out there, and people are kind of like realize, we're like you said, we're spirit beings having a human experience, and it is about sort of understanding, finding things that can keep you in your balance, and not feeling that you have to take some kind of medication that is going to kind of change everything, and before you know it, you're back on more. And again, I'm not here to say that people who's got medication, obviously, there is things that people need, people are going through. But we're just talking about this it just seems like at the moment, there's just so much talk on mental health, and it's becoming some sort of a mantra. And I always get a bit concerned when I'm hearing something. Everywhere you go, it's like, oh my God, But yes.
Absolutely.
So I think with that said, can you get us another one of your wonderful poems to bring us back, get us back to that center again.
Absolutely. This one is one of those that I love. This one is called Moon Lights My Sky. And I don't even know where some of these titles come from, but this one goes, I've seen the way the morning dawns in your eyes, but touching you in the night's reluctance to hold the moon, now there's a reason to cease one's breathing. I've seen weeping clouds come together like broken loved ones, how they fall and they sing in the background of my loving you. It is hell being confined in your absence, but I make something good of the few memories you left while handcrafted instruments set the tone and the texture of my life. Darling, it was always an out-of-body experience witnessing your touch confiscating my breath. But there are no hands left to touch me now. No lips left to heal me now. No love left to free me now. And so I search no more. Not for answers, not for questions, not for reasons. I search no more. The end.
Wow. Yeah, very beautiful. Going back into one's memory banks, and that's lovely. Wow. C.L., how can people find your books and speak to you, and where are you hanging out on social media? I've got more questions, but yeah.
So my social media is author UTHOR C.L. Brown, and that's on Instagram, that's on Facebook, that's on Twitter. My website is clbrownbooks.com, and from my website they can see the books, purchase the books, but the books are available on Amazon. They're available basically worldwide, anywhere you are that has major online book retailers, you can get it. So like in the United States is Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books and Books. There's even some in the UK that I looked up. I forgot the names of the ones in the UK. But so even like Amazon UK, Amazon Canada, globally. And if they go to bit.ly/CL Brown Books, it'll take them to my Amazon page, my author page on Amazon, where all three books will be there, and then once the fourth one comes out, that will be there as well.
Awesome. And as you were talking about earlier on, a healthy mind, healthy body, and you're able to kind of access the soul. And what I want to ask you is, we were just the last topic we were talking about. What would you say to anybody who is struggling, maybe stressed out, maybe focused on everything that may be going wrong and not realizing? Because I think that this is the thing. It's not so much what is going wrong in one's life. It's our focus and the meaning that we put to things. And like you were saying earlier on, if you identify with your emotions, if you see yourself as, I'm this angry person, I'm this sad person, I'm this bad luck person, you'll literally stop being this sentient, being, this powerful being, and now you've reduced yourself to, an emotion. What I would ask you, what would you say to somebody who may be struggling, going through, some stuff? Because certainly with 2020, we have got the structure that most people depended on has almost gone, if not gone for some people. So what would you say for them to kind of get themselves back to that centre and at least start to, set themselves back to at least hope and rise from there? Because I feel like, sometimes when people are right over there or right down there in that low frequency, they can't probably come up to the very highest. But, just taking a step to at least feeling better, or feeling, there's hope. What would you say to anybody who's below that feeling of hope, or they can't grasp hope at the moment? How would you get them back to hope?
Well, I think first of all, the first thing I would say is to that person, um, to know that there is so much inside of you, so much more than you think, so much more than society might tell you. Like, there's abundance in each and every one of us. You know what I'm saying? And it's important to believe that. But if you don't believe it, you know, if you're just willing to take steps toward that, you'll see how it's going to reveal itself to you little by little until you become a believer. Um, but you know, we can't just say, well, this is going to magically happen. You have to do something sometimes. And I think if you find yourself in a place where you feel that way, where you are stressed out, where you feel like your mind is not yours and you're just restless, I think if you can think about going through a detox process. And what I mean by that is identifying those things that you feel you cannot do without. The word for those are addictions. And for me personally, I try anything that I find myself doing and I feel like I can't stop, I literally tag it as an addiction and I stop it. You know, and maybe I'm privileged, for whatever reason, maybe it's just who I am, but I've always been a person. So if I was drinking and I felt like I was beginning to drink too much, I stopped drinking. You know, because when you get too deep into anything, you can no longer tell the difference if you're okay or if you're messed up. You know, but but if you know, you got to that place for a reason. No one was born into that place. You got to that place for a reason. So I think what we should be doing is trying to identify those things, those steps that we took that brought us there, and then reverse those steps. You know, go backwards. You know, social media is a depressing place, and if you're depressed, it's going to make you even more depressed. You know, because there are people on social media that they're not doing so well, and if you're not doing well, listen, it's okay to say today I'm not feeling so well. You know, be careful of the words that you speak over yourself. So, for example, like I've been on this thing where I'm saying I'm not going to tell people that I am sick, because when you say I am, you're identifying with something. You know, so right. So for me, I would say stuff like I'm not feeling so well today. You know, but I'm not sick. You know, but that's a whole nother level of thinking. But you know, a lot of people on social media, they're depressed. They're showing this fabrication of happiness. You know, they're partying, they're going out and having a good time, but they're really depressed. And depression energy, again, that's an energy. You're around someone and they're always depressed, you're gonna feel depressed. You know, I remember I was dating this girl years ago, and she was always just negative. Everything was just negative. Everything was like a negative answer. And I was like, no, I can't be around this person. I stopped calling her, because eventually you stay around that. Eventually you pick it up until you're so deep into it, you can no longer see that you're in it. You know. So, but again, if you're already in it, you may not even know that you're there, but your feelings will never lie to you. You know, you're gonna find yourself doing certain things, certain habits, and if you can, just start to break those habits down. You know what I'm saying? It's even like if you're health-wise, physically, if you're not really healthy, you know, and you keep eating the same things, you're gonna stay unhealthy. But if you say, let me cut out these things, cut out the fast foods, you find that you start feeling better. You're like, oh my God, I'm feeling better. And then you keep doing those things, and that's how you break habits. You know, so again, find those things that are addictive in your life, I would say, and do what you can to make them less addictive until you can eliminate them. You know, maybe what you can do is replace some of your things, some of your activities, right? So if you find yourself that you like to go out and drink, and you go out and you drink, you're having a good time drinking, but then after you drink it and you go home, you're depressed. You know, maybe don't go to a bar that night, but go to a poetry event. You know, go to a spoken event and get something that a different food, quote unquote food, in your diet, and then see what you like. You know, but you have to be proactive, and I would also say be mindful of the people that are speaking into your life. If someone has an incentive to lead you down the wrong path, you can't follow that person because they have an incentive to lead you down the wrong path. And I think the last thing I would say is spend time with yourself. It's one of the hardest things that I find people, because we're so used to being around people. We're being around our parents, our siblings, then you get friends and you're always around people, and you can have a friend and you say, oh, this is my friend, I love my friend. But why do you love that friend? Because you spent years around that person. You build a relationship because you spend time with that person. So in the same way, if you want to really love yourself, you have to spend time with yourself. If you like going to art shows, but your friends don't, typically you won't go because your friends don't want to go. Right? But you like it, but you like that stuff, but your friends don't go, so you don't go. So you're literally cutting yourself short for people who are not even considerate. Because if your friends would be considerate, they would say, oh, you know what, that's my friend, I'm not into art, but she is or he is, I'll go with him. But they say no, so you don't go. So learn to do the things that you love, do the things that you want to do, because at the end of the day, when you come to die, and when they open that casket to put you in there, no friend, in most cases, no sibling, maybe your parents will say, you know what, I'll take his or her place. But no one can. No one can take your place. So why live your life for people who won't even die for you? So. Mm-hmm.
Why live your life for people that would not die for you and or would not want to take your place? I love everything you said there, and definitely, we're consuming beings. So yes, we eat food, but we also consume, like C.L. was saying. You can be with somebody, if you're around somebody who's negative for a long enough time, because our minds, we're kind of one. We're all sort of in that same mind pool, that's the spirit pool, and you can start feeling down, and you have to shake yourself up and walk away. And just like somebody's really rapturously happy and roaring with laughter, and you just find you're laughing, and you can find a whole room laughing because one person is so happy and laughing. So
yes,
totally agree. We have to look at everything as we are consuming it, what we see with our eyes, what we hear with our ears, and what we put in our stomachs. And I totally agree with everything you said. We are down to our last 7 minutes. C.L., please, another poem before we have to wrap up.
Okay, let me do. I'm gonna do this one. And this, I'm just like randomly picking out stuff because this book is going to be like 300 pages. It's my largest book. So yeah, I all my books tend to be like 200 and some pages, but because I don't like just doing like 20 poems and 30 poems and it's really thin and call it a poetry book, but so this one, so there's many poems in this book, and this one is called You Stopped Showing Up. You despise me for choosing solitude. I did not. I chose us, but you stopped showing up. I grew to love the dark, though it prostituted my mind. Funny how a touch of paint makes a cage feel like a home. My soul is bruised because my thoughts are nervous, rigid, and bloody. Maybe love walks blindly because misplaced loyalty always comes first. Maybe losing you has been beaten on me. But whom do you blame when you can't see anyone but yourself? It was my willing price, my blemished sacrifice, gifting you what little I had, but foolish enough to think that I was enough. You looked so content outside my unharnessed emotions. My tears spoke a language that was foreign to you anyway. You left me to time. It broke me most times. but still I found the time to spend time with the absence of you. I didn't choose the solitude. I chose us, but you stopped showing up. The end.
Wow, very beautiful, and thank you. Really enjoyed that.
Thank
What
you.
does the future hold for Mr. C.L. Brown? What does the future hold? Where are you going the next year, the next 2 years, the next 5 years?
The next 5 years, I'm manifesting that I'll be writing full time. I still have a job, still have a 9 to 5 right now, but I'm again speaking about putting plans into place, into practice. So within the next 5 years, I'm looking to, not hoping, because I don't like the word hope, but I'm looking to be writing full time, and doing some traveling to promote the work, or just not really promote, but to present the work in more places around the world. Because I've had people from places like Cali, because I'm in Miami. I had people from like California. I've had people in Nigeria, in Ethiopia that are like, come and read for us. And so I would really love to be able to do those things. But just to keep trying to be the best father I can be, and keep writing these books. And I have projects, books that I've started. Beyond this fourth one. One of them is a novel. And I've been having people asking me for a long time, oh, you're not going to write a novel?
Yes.
Fiction. So I started that a few years ago. And after this book, the plan is to go and pick that up and try to finish that. And sometimes, I say to myself, you write poems, but can you write a novel? But again, it goes back to my opening statements about writing. I'm not so concerned if it's going to be a great, number one bestseller. It's going to be my first novel.
Yes.
And if it's great, awesome. And if it's not so great, then I know what to do next time around, right? So, yeah. So I'm looking forward to those things, and some traveling after this COVID situation is behind us. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it sounds, definitely new things on the horizon with your novel. I know your daughters. I think. Did you say you were writing a book, kind of around them as well, or for them, or I don't know. I can't remember if that.
Yes. But that one is, it's the way how it's being structured. At least now, it's more of. And it's weird because I'm healthy and I'm young, but I find myself thinking about the future and thinking about the possibility of me not being around, and wanting to speak to my children, to give them some life advice and stuff like that. So I think that book is more geared towards just advice, wisdom, and some guidance in the future. Yeah.
And C.L., you are back on the 8th of February with us.
Yes.
Around the Valentine's season, so we're definitely looking forward to hearing from you. Sorry, did you want to say a few words? We're like 2 minutes and we're going to have to go because Mr. T is about to come on the air, so get ready for Mr. T. And we are going to wrap up. So we're going to leave the last word with Mr. C.L. Brown.
So just a word of gratitude. Firstly, to you for always extending to me your platform. I greatly appreciate that, and for everyone that tuned in to listen live, and for those people that are going to listen afterwards, I'm grateful for your attention, for your time, because I don't take it for granted. I think you can be the greatest philosopher, the most wise person on this earth, but no one is obligated to listening to you. So whenever someone takes the time to listen to me, to read something that I wrote, I never ever take it for granted. I'm always grateful and always humbled by it. So I appreciate each and every one. And for 2021, again, I don't like the word hope, so I try not to use that word, but I pray that everyone will have a much more fruitful year than 2020. that we'll get back to some normalcy, or create a new normal, but just to be in a better place of being creative and being productive and being joyful and happy, and really enjoying this life that we have, because it's fleeting. So thanks to you, thanks to everyone, and a blessed year to each and every one of you guys.